Welcome. So happy to have you here. This is the Astro Psyche. My name is Shawna McGrath. I'm a psychotherapist and I work in private practice where I offer depth psychotherapy incorporating astrology, tarot, and the metaphysical and spiritual. As I'm recording this, we are fully immersed in the peak of a powerful astrology transit involving Jupiter, Chiron, and Pluto. And I wanted to explore these planetary archetypes with you. This combination involves themes of power, autonomy, power dynamics, dignity, and this polarity. This often can be experienced as a split around feeling powerful or powerless, feeling autonomous and non autonomous. Uh, I think that especially Chiron Pluto can bring us into experiences of feeling along the spectrum, along the binary of child versus adult, healed versus unhealed, the the wounded versus the caregiver, the privilege versus marginalization, the oppressor versus the oppressed. And these are strong themes that are embodied through these planetary archetypes of Chiron, Pluto, and Jupiter. And what I want us to explore here together is how can we explore and expand and uh, find new ways of going beyond this splitting, this binary split of the essentially these are the only options of being oppressive or of experiencing oppression or being oppressive or of being powerful or unpowerful. How can we find other ways of being with these planetary aspects? How can we, how can we be with both of these energies and witness and hold space for what is while also attempting to bring healing and transmutation to these energies, which Chiron is about in particular? So, those are some of the themes. Now, more technically, more astrologically, what's happening in the sky is we have Jupiter in Leo, very early degrees of Leo, opposite Pluto in Aquarius. So they are opposite one another. They are at opposite ends of the spectrum. They are in a 180-degree position to one another. And what this means is that these two planets are seemingly completely different, but they have something in common. This is the nature of an opposition, is its duality, its polarity, but there is something that brings them together by sharing this common line. And there can be sometimes this moving back and forth between one and the other of experiencing the qualities of Jupiter and then flipping to experience the qualities of Pluto. An opposition is also a full moon aspect. So it is a quality of culmination in the cycle. Now, Jupiter opposite Pluto has been in effect for about the last year or so. Jupiter opposite Pluto in this particular cycle began September of 2025, and it will has been in effect this entire time from September of 2025 until September of 2026. So we collectively are feeling and experiencing and embodying and participating in this energy of Jupiter, which is the going big, going bold, expansive, Jupiter is incredibly philosophical, it is spiritual, it is religious, it is connecting us into looking at the bigger picture of things and the philosophical, the philosophical underpinnings of things. Jupiter is hope, enthusiasm, optimism, faith, and it is also dogma, thinking you know it all, uh, bulldozing over others in order to make your point, sometimes at the cost of others. This is all Jupiter. Jupiter can be incredibly benefic and inspiring and hope inducing. It can really pull us up out of the depths. It can uh, help us, it can help to buoy us when we are feeling down. And it can also feel too much. It can feel consuming. It can feel oppressive or invasive as well, because its nature is to expand and explore. Now, Pluto is in contact in aspect with Jupiter is in aspect with Pluto. Pluto is a symbol of the deep, the depth, the mysterious, the hidden, the veiled, the secret. Pluto is also a symbol of power dynamics, how we um, how we control, how we want to control, can be a symbol of jealousy. I think at its root, Pluto is about deep, intense experiences and deep, intense bonding. And like everything else in life, in the astrology, Pluto, this bonding instinct, Pluto is also connected to instincts and survival and resilience. It's very gritty in its nature. It speaks to the experiences of intense survival, intense resilience, and the trauma that can happen when we are in an intense experience that is too much, too fast, or where there is harm or violence or oppression. And it can also speak to the strength and resilience to survive those experiences. The qualities, the things that we do in order to, as humans, um, survive through horrible things. And Pluto is also a symbol of the care and healing and repair that is needed afterwards. So, in many ways, Pluto speaks to the full experience of uh, trauma and harm, both how it can happen, where a person who experiences harm or trauma sometimes goes on to perpetrate that harm and trauma, and also the intense, let's see, how do I say this? In order to heal that trauma, the the deep presence that is needed in order to heal, the deep attending and attunement that is needed to heal. There is nothing about Pluto that is light or surface. Everything about it is deep and intense and meaningful, and uh, a part of our collectively as as astrologers, as mystics, as people that are maybe even simply astrology enthusiasts, a part of our fear response around Pluto is that depth and intensity because we fear the unknown, which is also Pluto. It's the unknown, the secretive, the hidden. We fear the unknown, and Pluto can activate a fear response around being engulfed, being overwhelmed, being overcome, being possessed or taken over by something. It is an overwhelming energy, and it is also a deeply cathartic energy. When we have Pluto in our natal chart, or we have a Pluto transit, Pluto to a personal planet, a part of the experience of that transit is we encounter the ways in which um, we are working through power dynamics in this life and in our life. And my hope always for all of us when we are working with Pluto themes is that we find our own sense of inner resilience and inner strength and inner autonomy, the power that comes from inside in knowing that you are the one who can connect into the meaning of your life, and that that is powerful, that you can connect into um, making choices when and where and how that is available to you, even if that is a minor choice, and also um, seeking out care and advocating for yourself as much as you can, as much as you can muster. Now, and this is an intense, often Pluto is underworld journeys. And when we have an underworld journey, we encounter something unconscious, usually. And usually, uh, when we encounter the unconscious, it is this experience of sort of like, whoa, realizing something, bringing something in, and then that thing gets integrated into you, and it brings more vitality and power back into you because now you have reclaimed something that is in you, but now it is conscious. And on the other end of a Plutonian experience is often a feeling of greater integration or wholeness or inclusion. Um, it is uh, liberating the repressed or the oppressed, whether that is intrapsychically within your own psyche, parts of yourself, or collectively, people, beings, situations. Um, and when we have Jupiter opposite Pluto, Jupiter is bringing an expansive quality. It's like saying, yes, let's do more, let's explore more. I think Jupiter can also bring in the um, call to look at things from a metaphysical or spiritual perspective as well. And sometimes that can be bring in, the perspective of organized religion, but I think Jupiter is not just organized religion, it's also having this connection to spirit, to what we might call animism, where in animism, it is this belief system that all beings and things are alive and interconnected, and all beings and things have a soul and a spirit, and that we are all connected and impact one another, even if we cannot visibly see that impact. And so these are some of the themes that are alive this year, especially. September 2025 to September 2026. And it's incredibly potent now, as I'm recording this, July 2026 and into August and September of 2026, because it's um, close to being exact. Now, another component of this is Jupiter making a square to Chiron. Or actually, let me back this up. So Jupiter and Pluto are opposite one another, and they are both being squared by Chiron. So this is creating what's called a T-square. When we have an opposition, uh, Jupiter and Pluto, and then we have another planet that is squaring each of those planets, it creates, we could draw a T in the chart, and so it creates a T-square. And this is a very dynamic, vibrant, alive, call to action sort of aspect. When we have squares and oppositions, they usually are calling something in. Um, it usually denotes a time period where we are encountering or confronting something more directly. There's a tension, there's a dynamicness with it. So the opposition, Jupiter opposite Pluto, an opposition usually feels like an either or, and it can often feel as though we have to choose one thing or one way to be. And uh, this is this is the problem and the solution and the medicine. So it is an illusion that we need to choose. The medicine of an opposition is finding a way to braid the two together in a way that um, does not reject either, in a way that holds space for both and allows both to exist and allows, in this case, both Jupiter and Pluto to coexist together and to impact one another. So the going into one extreme here would look like going into the extreme of Jupiter, which would be possibly either having like rose-colored glasses and saying it's going to be fine, and having that blind faith, and we could even say, you know, maybe toxic positivity. That's one severe end of this spectrum, which may be exactly what a person needs in order to move through a very difficult experience. Uh, and if a person stays there in that sphere, there is a possibility for not seeing the harm that is happening, not seeing um, the reality of what's happening, and maybe missing something. Um, in contrast to moving to the extreme at the other end of this polarity, this duality, which would be Pluto, there can be a possibility of being stuck in the underworld, stuck in the unconscious. And this is where it could look like experiences of rumination, um, rumination, feelings like feeling powerless and feeling like there's no way out. I think sometimes Pluto experiences, it can feel like just when we're really in the grips of it, it can feel like we are very small and powerless, and there is very little child sort of feeling, like there's nothing that you can do, and or being gripped intensely by experiences of shame. And we all experience these kinds of things. What can happen if we're at one end of the polarity that is Pluto, we can get stuck there. And this is a part of the medicine of this opposition that we all get to experience, is um, being able to move through both ends of this spectrum. So experiencing shame, or smallness, which would be Pluto. And then it's like, okay, now we need to dose a bit of the Jupiter in there. We need to connect to, or we can connect to feelings of hope, feelings of support. Jupiter is also a symbol of connecting with people who are able to, ready, willing, and able to provide help and support to you. And then we can move things over to the Jupiterian end. And if we find that we're getting dogmatic or rigid in our belief system, which can be Jupiter, it's like, okay, we need to dose a little bit of Pluto, which is exploring the unconscious and questioning things and doing some more introspective work. So we can see these themes happening around us in the people in our lives, in our community, um, in the world, and also within our own psyche. And so, um, as I'm sharing this with you, I'm curious what comes up for you here. Is there a certain experience or quality of one of the archetypes of either Jupiter or Pluto that um, that feels relevant for you, especially at this moment in time, or that maybe even you feel in your life? We all have Jupiter, we all have Pluto somewhere in our birth chart. And so this is also a part of the holographic way that transits work is in the sky, Jupiter is opposite Pluto, and that may be aspecting something in your birth chart. For example, let's say you have planets in the early degrees of Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, or Scorpio. This is probably going to be aspecting very closely something in your natal chart. So it's going to be more personal to you. It's going to activate, let's say if Venus is there, it's going to activate the part of you that is connected to desire, eros, creativity, your conceptions of femininity or women and what it means to be erotic, alluring, creative, and feminine, and what that means to you personally, what that means as far as the your understanding of how femininity means societally, collectively, as a social construct. And even if this transit is not connecting into something in your natal chart, it's not aspecting any of your planets, it is it is activating your natal Jupiter and Pluto placements. And so your natal Jupiter and Pluto are being activated here. Inherent uh, your inherent connection to and relationship with hope, optimism, spirituality, which is Jupiter, and then also your own inherent connection to the unconscious, to power dynamics, to secrecy, veiledness, which is Pluto. One thing that I think is really interesting about Pluto is that in the myth, the mythic figure Pluto in Greek and Roman mythology is that Pluto had a helmet that was gave him the power of invisibility. And this explains so much about Pluto as a planetary archetype and how it is connected to uh, secret things, hidden things, things being um, hidden, as in pushed away or rejected or repressed. Pluto was the deity that ruled over and protected the underworld, which involved the ancestors, the dead, but also the underworld being this place that we don't really want to look at. So there's so many qualities of Pluto that are around, like, oh, I don't want to see this, I don't want to look at it. And also, there is an option to intentionally veil oneself, to be uh, secretive or protective. And I think this is a part of the life-giving, empowering quality of Pluto, where we can, in order to move through an experience with more ease or more protection, there can be a quality of veiling oneself or being hidden or being secretive or being protective. Okay, so let's bring Chiron into this equation. I think Chiron is bringing both attention and awareness to this dynamic of Jupiter Pluto, which is about power, authority, dignity, working out who is powerful, who is not. Um, how do we find connection? In my clinical experience, Chiron transits tend to show a time where we encounter deep, intense emotional experiences, often around vulnerability, where there has been hurt, where there has been um, a psychological injury or abandonment or um, simply very tender feelings. Chiron shows where we have an opportunity to fully experience that psychological material, often, again, like pain, hurt, like something that hurts, something that is tender. And it is through that witnessing of that experience and like really feeling that experience that it is psychologically digested and metabolized. And then there is a feeling of freedom from carrying that. There is a feeling of, again, this integration. And so uh, I think a part of Chiron connecting in with Jupiter and Pluto is it's like, okay, we're we're having this experience of encountering the pain, encountering the hurt, encountering the harm. And in order to bring repair, in order to whatever that looks like, again, whether that is collectively, interpersonally, or intrapsychically within your own psyche, it is important to acknowledge the pain, the hurt, or the harm that has been caused in order to bring a repair, in order to craft a medicine. And so this is Chiron. Chiron is both the awareness of what hurts, and it also is the bringing in the medicine and the healing. Uh, I wanted to talk to you about this aspect in particular because I think this aspect is like ouch. It is it feels intense and prickly, and I think a part of working with astrology is that it helps to name what we may already be feeling. And what this does, at least in my experience as a human, as a therapist, is that when we can say, ah, yes, okay, that's what I'm feeling, that is what my experience is, it helps us to identify, to refine it. It brings a feeling of mirroring, and then we can understand, but we can also um, feel not so alone. And we can also understand, okay, uh, this is what is being invoked at this time. And so what is being invoked collectively is this archetypal combination of Jupiter, Chiron, Pluto, hope, healing around power dynamics, hope and healing around marginalization and oppression, hope and healing around what has been unconsciously repressed, hope and healing around what has been um, unclaimed thus far. Now, also important in this combination is the more long-term transit of Chiron square Pluto. This is a long one. So the Jupiter is more short term. Jupiter opposite Pluto is about a year-long transit. Jupiter square Chiron is about a year-long transit. This is because Jupiter takes 12 years to go through the entire zodiac. So it's in each sign for about a year. Chiron and Pluto move much slower. Chiron takes about 50 years to go through the entire zodiac. And Pluto takes about 250 years to go through the entire zodiac. What's intriguing about Chiron and Pluto is they both, unlike all of the other planetary bodies, Chiron and Pluto are unique in that they both have an eclectic pattern through the zodiac. So, what I mean by this is all the other planets, um, the luminaries, the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, they all spend about the same time in each sign. Now, it varies a little bit depending on retrograde, but for the most part, it is uniform. Whereas Chiron will spend a majority of its time in Pisces, Aries, and Taurus. Chiron spends about 8 to 10 years in Pisces, about 8 to 10 years in Aries, and in Taurus. The other signs, it is variable. Some signs it spends about 5 years there. Some it's very short. For example, I believe it's Libra and Scorpio. Chiron only spends about a year or so in there. So 1 year versus like 10 years. That's incredibly variable and incredibly unique. Pluto is the same way. Pluto will spend 15 to 20 years in a sign, and it depends. And a part of this has to do with astronomy and the orbit of Chiron and Pluto being more long and elliptical versus circular. Uh, Anyways, I digress. Why that is important for us to know now is that it means that Chiron in Taurus, Aries at this moment, Chiron is moving even more slow. So it means that Chiron making aspects to Pluto, those transits are longer. They take longer because the planet is moving slower. So it's like in slow motion. So Chiron is in an opening square to Pluto. It means that it is a waxing square opening from the conjunction that happened between Chiron and Pluto back in the early 2000s. So this is a long-term cycle. Chiron and Pluto have a cycle from one conjunction to another of about 50 to 70 years or so. Again, it's very variable because their cycles are variable. I'm sharing all of this with you because Chiron and Pluto are generational in nature. This means that when they're in aspect, an entire generation may share that aspect. So, for example, folks that were born in the late 1990s to early 2000s are probably going to have Chiron conjunct Pluto. So that is a generation, many people over many years share that aspect. And what that means is it is less personal and it more represents the generation, but it also means that that generation carries the archetypal energy of Chiron conjunct Pluto. So uh, for them, there is more of this theme of planting the seeds of healing the repressed, healing the marginalized, of um, bringing healing and medicine and contemplation to the veiled, the mysterious, the occult, even maybe Pluto being connected to the occult. Another example, for a long period of time in the 1960s, Chiron was opposite Pluto. And that was when Chiron was in a slower it was moving slower through the signs also. So there's also that generational aspect. Anyways, what I'm saying now is Chiron square Pluto is active now, today, as I'm filming this, beginning from May of 2024 to about April of 2034. So it's about a 10-year period, 2024 to 2034, using a 10-degree orb of Chiron square Pluto. So this is a long time. So we're like fully in this archetypal experience of Chiron square Pluto. In my experience, what this is like for us is it is more subtle, enduring, and we really move into this experience. It's like an immersion. I think of long-term planetary transits like this when it's anything over 5 years. In this case, it's 10 years. Uh, it becomes the water that we swim in, and it's like an immersion. It's like taking a month-long class versus like a couple of hours workshop. It's like uh, getting an intense certification program, or it's like doing really in-depth mentorship, weekly mentorship over several years versus getting a one-time astrology reading. That's what a 10-year transit is like. It really deepens us into the experience. It allows us to go farther and deeper and more potent with it, but it also at the same time is subtle because it's very day to day. So there's not a contrast. We don't notice it as much. And we're really in the peak of it at this moment with Chiron at 0 to 1 degrees of Taurus at the moment, and Pluto at 5 degrees of Aquarius. It's very tight, it's very close. And so the energies are more alive, they're more dynamic, they can break through more clearly. Uh, I want to share with you a little bit more about Chiron and Chiron's symbolism. So, Chiron is a symbol, as a planetary archetype. Chiron is a symbol of healing, medicine, teaching, learning, mentorship, guidance. Chiron, as a in the myth, was skilled at so many different things. He was a centaur, half human, half horse. He was a physician, a surgeon, an astrologer. He did prophecy. He did archery. He was skilled in the arts, medicine, and warriorship as well. So, like everything you could think of. And he also taught and mentored um, the many of the heroes in the Greek pantheon. So he was both a practitioner and also a teacher. And so these are some of the themes of Chiron. Chiron is very connected to healing, arts, medicine, astrology, the metaphysical, and also teaching and mentorship and holding space for other people. A big part of Chiron's story is also themes of um, being hurt, receiving a wound, um, being poisoned. So there is that injury quality, and then finding a way to move through that, finding a way to tend to the injury, and grappling with experiences of immortality, what it means to be immortal versus being a human. And so a lot of Chiron's myth is around um, these questions of what it means to live a human life that inherently involves pain and suffering, and how we can exist with that and not reject it, how we can tend to the things that are uh, vulnerable, the things that hurt us, and how we can find healing and humanity in that process. So, this combination of Chiron square Pluto, these are some of my thoughts as to how this may come up for us. And this might be individually for you in your own life, it might be in your own psyche, it might be in your community or more collective. Chiron to Pluto is a symbol of healing the repressed, of transmuting the fate of marginalization, of the marginalized transmuting the fate of the collective. It could look like mentorship in occult practices or mystery traditions, of occult practices that bring healing. It could be learning about power. It could be about power facilitating learning and healing. It could be working out student teacher power dynamics. It could be working out uh, patient healer power dynamics. This is something I've been very intrigued by. This has been coming up a lot um, for me in my practice and in my life, and in a variety of different ways, how, uh, at least in the States, the US, we really have to advocate for ourselves and our loved ones in getting medical care, even psychological care, I think too. Um, this is really important, and I think this is a part of the way that Chiron Pluto may manifest as well, is um, continuing to advocate for yourself to receive the care that you need. Chiron Pluto is also the witchy healer, healing through ritual, symbolic means, archetypal means, energetic means, receiving healing through connecting with the earth, receiving healing through connecting with ancestors or the ancestral realm. Chiron Pluto is learning about and exposing shame in safe, contained, healthy spaces that are non judgmental, that are trauma informed. Chiron Pluto is about giving light and air and breathing space to shame, and this transmutes our fate. Chiron Pluto is about revealing hidden or unconscious wounds. The unconscious is liberated. Chiron Pluto is a symbol of the death and rebirth of the good one complex. It's the death and rebirth of this complex that many of us have around being good, having it all together, being the one that knows, being the exceptional one, being the the one that is perfect. It's the death and rebirth of the perfection complex. In the same vein, Chiron Pluto is also a symbol of the perfection complex, invoking an underworld journey that inherently transmutes us. Maybe most of all, Chiron Pluto is about witnessing pain. About witnessing, holding space for, and lovingly tending to pain. And that this witnessing is transmutive and it is healing in itself. That presence, that attuned presence is healing. Chiron Pluto is tending to trauma. It is creating space for challenging experiences um, to be in the room. And when I'm saying tending to trauma, this this is not about retelling or re-traumatizing through re-experiencing trauma. Tending to trauma is creating a safe, contained space for someone to exist, and creating a safe and contained, non-judgmental, loving, caring, attuned space for someone to exist and to express and be with whatever is happening for them in the moment. So often, trauma happens because of a rupture in relationship. And so, in order to heal the trauma, we need relationship as well. We need attunement. We need human, animal, or nature attunement. Chiron Pluto is the revealing of hidden medicines. And when I think of medicine, it is maybe literal medicine that you get in a pill or a vial. And medicine is also metaphysical. Medicine is energetic. Medicine can be an experience. It can be a dream. It can be a ritual. It can be all of these things. And so we're really in it at the moment. And this Jupiter Pluto Chiron T square um, asks us to be present with intense experiences. It asks us to venture into the wilderness of the unconscious, to venture into experiences of deep feeling. And it asks us also to create healthy, contained space in order to do so, and to seek out the people, places, and situations that help us to feel seen and heard and contained, and to help us feel connected to self and to other. It is intense and it is medicinal, and my hope for us is that we find ways to be with what is, and to tend to what is happening on the inside and what is happening on the outside, and to know that there's no perfect way to show up. And what we can do is show up and do our best and be as present and mindful and attuned as possible, and to ask for help when we need it, and to offer help when we're able to as well. This fall, I will be offering a 9-week online course on Chiron, exploring Chiron as a mythic figure and a planetary archetype. And we will explore Chiron's myth in depth from a depth psychological perspective, and how Chiron can help us understand our own healing journey and our own healing experience, our own psychological process, again, from this depth psychological perspective. And we'll also learn how to interpret Chiron as a planetary archetype in the natal birth chart, the transits, and then also the world transits as well. Um, if you would like to join me in this course, or if you want to just stay in touch with me on other offerings that I have, you can sign up for my newsletter at theastropsyche.com. I am wishing you a most easeful and supportive time in these coming months, and I will see you soon. Thank you so much for being here with me. It's such an honor and joy to be able to connect with you here. Bye.